Welcome, deep divers. Today, we're diving headfirst into something, well, really fundamental to our daily lives, yet it often just goes unnoticed. Judgment. I mean, think about how often your mind automatically categorizes things, labels them, decides what's good or bad. It's almost constant, isn't it?
It absolutely is, yeah. And for this deep dive, we're pulling some really powerful insights from Dr. Nader Attalla's work,
Yeah.
specifically Chapter 4, which is all about non-judgment. So our mission today really is to unpack why our minds even operate this way.
Right.
What's the, often hidden impact of all this relentless judging? And crucially, how you can cultivate a more open, discerning way of experiencing the world.
Without getting overwhelmed.
Exactly, without feeling overwhelmed or, losing your footing.
That's the core of it, because here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Releasing judgment isn't about becoming passive or just ignoring reality.
Not at all.
It's quite the opposite, actually. It seems like it's about seeing reality with, well, profound clarity, which can unlock unexpected beauty and lead to genuine inner peace. So let's get into this.
Okay, so Dr. Attalla describes the mind as something like a perpetual motion machine.
Okay.
It's just constantly churning out judgments, almost like it fears silence, right? Filling any void with what he calls thinkingness.
Thinkingness. I like that. That endless stream of internal commentary on everything.
Yeah, everything and everyone around you.
Right. It's like our mind's default OS, isn't it? This isn't just a quirk. It's like fundamental to how the ego works.
Exactly. It processes everything through this binary lens, right or wrong, good or bad, beautiful or ugly, very black and white.
So stark, yeah.
Imagine your mind approaching every bit of information like it's at a three-way fork in the road.
Oh, okay.
Anything that enters your awareness gets instantly routed. If it's labeled good, you reach for it, you want more of it.
Attraction.
Right? If it's bad, you instinctively recoil, resist, maybe try to escape.
Revulsion.
Yep. And if it's neutral, well, those things often just become invisible. They get ignored.
So we just filter them out.
Pretty much. This rapid-fire categorization, it's largely driven by your analytical left brain, and it fuels those strong emotional responses. Attraction, revulsion, or just plain indifference.
It's fascinating how much of our experience is shaped by just these instant classifications. But, I mean, judgment does serve a purpose, doesn't it? We need it for some things.
Oh, absolutely. Like navigating traffic or choosing healthy food.
Exactly.
You've hit on a crucial point. This categorizing thing, it's vital. It has an important evolutionary purpose. How would we navigate a busy street or pick good food without some kind of discernment?
Right.
The problem isn't really judgment itself, but it's excess. When we fall into what Dr. Attalla calls excessive hyperjudgment, that's when it starts to distort our perception.
Okay, so it's the overuse of it.
Exactly. It twists how we see ourselves, others, the world. This reactive, kind of imbalanced mindset often anchors us in the ego's duality instead of a deeper awareness that sees unity.
And the ego likes that control.
Oh, yeah. From the ego's perspective, judgment is a primal defense mechanism. It's the first line of defense for survival and control, especially when things feel threatening.
So it's about the pervasiveness of the evaluation, not just the act itself. Because our judgments aren't objective truths, are they? They feel like it sometimes, but...
Not at all. They're interpretations filtered through your particular lens, your unique perception.
Like wearing glasses that only let you see what you've been conditioned to notice.
That's a great analogy.
Whether it's family, media, society, personal stuff, it creates a kind of tunnel vision.
Precisely. And often this judgmentalism, it's a form of projection.
Ah, projection.
Yeah, unconsciously casting outward what actually resides within us. Carl Jung famously said something like, projections change the world into the replica of one's own unknown face.
Wow. So what really irritates you and others?
Often reflects disowned aspects of yourself, qualities you might have suppressed or denied in your own being.
That's a challenging thought for many of us, myself included. But it resonates. It suggests true freedom starts with acknowledging our own shadow side.
It really does. Those negative thoughts or impulses we'd rather just ignore.
It makes sense that people who really journey into self-knowledge tend to stop the harsh judgment because they've faced their own stuff.
Exactly. They've confronted their own inner landscape. And it's a profound realization. This wisdom spans millennia, really.
Right, like ancient teachings.
Yeah, when Jesus advised, "Judge not, lest you be judged," he wasn't necessarily threatening divine punishment.
Okay.
He was likely speaking to a psychological law. How you judge others often reveals more about your own inner state than about them.
So the way we see others reflects back on us.
The compassion or harshness you extend outward, it tends to become the filter through which you experience your own life.
So spiritual teachings often guide us beyond the ego's likes and dislikes
Beyond attractions and aversions.
to connect with something deeper, like our true nature, which is love.
That's the invitation. And it's crucial to clarify, moving beyond judgment doesn't mean becoming indifferent or losing discernment. Not at all.
Okay, that's important.
It simply means seeing things as they are without the distorting lens of personal preference or projection clouding your view.
Seeing clearly.
Exactly. There's a beautiful story attributed to Jesus in the Gospel of Judas. He's asked if his religion is the only true one,
Okay.
and he responds using analogies like grains of sand, each unique if you look closely, or water in a garden making different flowers bloom in their own colors.
Ah, the diversity.
Yeah, he says the beauty of a bouquet is in the harmony and contrast. He suggests our differences in beliefs, cultures, languages should actually stimulate us toward unity, toward the one God,
So differences are a celebration.
a celebration of the infinite variety of one life. And he says only love can empower us to make our differences into a blessing, rather than oppositions and exclusions.
That's incredibly powerful. Love transforming opposition into blessing.
Isn't it? And Buddha taught something similar, that true judgment is impossible.
Why impossible?
Because our perception is inherently limited, filtered through our own conditioning, our illusions, as he might say.
So we only see part of the picture.
Exactly. Wisdom, then, begins with humility, admitting our consciousness doesn't know everything. In that humility, we surrender the role of being the ultimate arbiter.
We let go of needing to be right all the time.
Right. We recognize our perspective is partial, so the goal isn't to eliminate judgment entirely. That's probably not possible or even practical.
Okay.
It's more about developing awareness of those judgmental thoughts and fostering a willingness to gently release them.
Noticing them without getting hooked.
Precisely. And with each judgment you recognize and set aside, emotional disturbance tends to diminish, and a kind of natural peace can emerge.
That brings us to a really important distinction, one that I think often gets confused. Discernment versus judgment. How do we tell them apart?
It's such a critical point. Think of a master chef tasting a dish.
Okay.
With just one bite, they instantly know what works and what doesn't, which flavors harmonize, which ones clash.
Yeah. That's not really good or bad in a moral sense.
Exactly. That's discernment, not judgment. When you cultivate discernment, that moralistic labeling just falls away. You develop an intuitive knowing.
Like a clear perception.
Yeah, a clear perception of what functions effectively, what nurtures, or maybe what harms, without needing to slap a good or bad label on it.
So it's the difference between saying, this path leads to unnecessary suffering, versus
this is a bad path and only terrible people would choose it. See the difference?
yeah, one illuminates, the other just condemns and obscures. That's a fantastic way to put it.
One is about understanding function and consequence. The other is about moral verdict.
Okay, so if discernment is about clear perception, what exactly is non-judgment then? Is it just being blank?
Not at all. Not blank. Imagine walking through a garden again.
Okay.
Every plant, rose, dandelion, orchid, thistle, it just is. It exists. You observe them without that immediate automatic reaction of I like this or I don't like that.
Just letting it be.
That's the essence of non-judgment. Releasing those automatic verdicts that got programmed into your mind through, media, family, culture, past experiences.
All that conditioning.
Right. Non-judgment means meeting each moment without the clinging of attraction or the pushing away of revulsion or even the dismissal of indifference. Just being present to what is.
So we can observe without being swept up by our reactions. Dr. Attalla mentions we'll never completely escape the mind's processing. Thoughts arise unbidden. It's just what minds do.
True. You can't just halt the flow of thinkingness, but you can choose whether to follow the path of judgment when a thought arises.
You have a choice point.
Exactly. Ram Dass put it so beautifully. He said something like, when you go out into the woods, you see all these different trees, some bent, some straight. You look at the tree and you allow it. You appreciate it. You see why it is the way it is.
You understand its conditions?
Right. He asks, can you imagine bringing that same allowing presence to everything you encounter, including yourself?
That's a powerful invitation. That really lands. It's almost like thinkingness is the constant motion of ocean waves.
Mm-hmm.
But deep beneath the surface, the ocean holds this profound stillness and silence.
Beautiful analogy.
That's a realm beyond judgment that we can learn to touch, maybe more regularly.
Exactly. And in many wisdom traditions, practices like mindfulness and meditation are designed to help you stop identifying with the thoughts.
Not being the thought.
Right. You learn to observe them as they arise and pass, like clouds in the sky of your awareness, without getting caught up or trying to control them.
Okay, so if we cultivate this non-judgmental approach, what's in it for us? Like, what are the tangible benefits?
Oh, the benefits are profound. And,
Mm.
increasingly, they're scientifically validated too.
Oh, really? Like studies show this?
Yeah, research consistently shows that being less judgmental leads to increased subjective well-being, reduced psychological symptoms, things like anxiety, depression,
That makes sense.
also diminished emotional reactivity and improved behavioral regulation. Things like mindfulness-based therapy or MBT are highly effective for stress, anxiety, depression, partly because they cultivate this non-judgmental stance.
Yeah, that's great to hear about the science backing it up. Beyond the data, though, what are some of the experiential shifts people notice? What does it feel like?
Experientially, several things tend to happen. First, you often start seeing beauty in everything.
How so?
Well, when we stop automatically categorizing, it's like a veil lifts and the world just appears more vibrant. Beauty reveals itself in unexpected places, things you might have judged as ugly or mundane before.
So you see more.
You see more. And our compulsive need to control through judgment starts to ease up. Paradoxically, when you stop fighting life, you often discover life isn't fighting you back.
But that sounds like it would lead straight to increased gratitude.
It absolutely does. Judgment often leads to satisfaction, doesn't it? The critical mind is always measuring what is against what it thinks should be.
Always finding fault.
Right. When you release judgment, contentment naturally arises. You discover the sufficiency of the present moment, and genuine gratitude can just bloom for what actually exists.
And that must lead to more peace.
Definitely. Inner peace and joy. Think about the sheer energy judgment consumes. All that constant evaluating, comparing, projecting, it's exhausting. It drains your vitality.
It really is.
Releasing those habits creates immense space, and into that space, peace and joy can emerge naturally.
It's true that internal chatter is tiring. And it also seems like letting go of judgment would help us see reality with true discernment. We talked about discernment earlier.
Precisely. Our thoughts don't just interpret the world, they often create the world we perceive.
Our reality tunnel.
Yeah. When you shift your state of mind away from judgment, reality starts to appear more as it is, undistorted. This naturally leads to true discernment and a sense of equanimity.
And how does this affect our relationships? Being more present with others.
Hugely. People caught up in judgment are rarely fully present, are they? They're either ruminating on past wrongs, criticizing the present, or anticipating future problems.
Lost in thought.
Yeah. Releasing judgment means you stop experiencing life as this endless series of problems to fix. You become truly available to this moment and to the people sharing it with you.
Which in turn helps us become more loving.
Beautifully put. As Mother Teresa wisely noted, if you judge people, you have no time to love them. Judgment builds walls. Love dissolves them.
That's so true.
And non-judgment also helps us develop a non-dualistic mind. The ordinary dualistic mind sees separation everywhere, me versus you, good versus bad.
Us versus them.
Right. But spiritual awareness expands to recognize the profound interconnectedness of all existence. Like in a garden, it thrives only through the functional interconnection of care, water, light, soil. It helps us perceive holistically.
That connection to complex systems is fascinating. And it sounds like it would help develop intuition, maybe activating the right brain more.
Exactly. The analytical left brain is busy categorizing and judging. But the right brain specializes in intuition, creativity, that kind of energetic awareness.
Holistic view.
Yes. As you practice non-judgment, you naturally activate more right brain functions. You enhance your ability to perceive holistically and intuitively, reading situations and people with your heart, not just your evaluating mind.
And ultimately, this whole journey culminates in discovering true spirituality.
You could say that. At the heart of authentic spirituality often lies diminished judgment and an expanded perspective. When we glimpse life through this wider lens, we start to perceive things perhaps as many traditions suggest the divine perceives with compassion, with love.
Seeing the bigger picture.
Yeah. Shams of Tabriz put it beautifully. How we see God is a direct reflection of how we see ourselves.
Wow.
If God brings to mind mostly fear and blame, it means there is too much fear and blame walled inside us. If we see God as full of love and compassion, so are we.
That's profound. Our inner state reflecting our perception of the ultimate. So with all these insights, it makes me wonder, how do these judgments actually work in our minds? Like, what are the mechanics behind them?
That brings us to something psychiatrists like Aaron Beck identified: cognitive distortions.
Cognitive distortions. Okay.
These are essentially irrational thinking patterns, mental habits really, that reinforce negative emotions and biased perspectives. Just understanding them, recognizing them in yourself is a huge first step toward freedom.
Okay, let's explore some of these. What are some common ones we might recognize in ourselves or others?
Well, there's rationalization. That's when our minds cook up these elaborate excuses for choices or events that maybe don't align with our values or preferences. Permission-giving statements, sometimes they're called.
Making it okay when it maybe isn't.
Right. Then there's overgeneralization,
Mhm.
taking one single negative event and making a huge, sweeping conclusion. Like, one bad date means all men are cruel, or I'll always be alone.
Yeah, I can see that one.
Another common one is the mental filter, sometimes called discounting the positive. It's like wearing glasses that only show you life's disappointments while filtering out all the good stuff, all the joys,
Focusing only on the negative.
magnifying it even. Then there's the critical self. That's when we blame ourselves for things that are way beyond our control or responsibility.
Like feeling personally responsible for bad weather, ruining a picnic you planned.
Exactly. Or related to this are assumptive distortions, like mind reading, believing we know what others are thinking about us. And it's usually negative, right? With zero actual evidence.
Assuming the worst about their thoughts.
Or fortune telling, predicting worst case scenarios with absolute certainty, like you know the presentation will bomb. And jumping to conclusions where negative interpretations just override any factual evidence to the contrary.
Okay, I definitely recognize some of those. And you mentioned compare and despair earlier. That one really hits home for a lot of people, I think.
Yes, that's where you selectively notice only the positive qualities in others while zooming in on your own perceived flaws. It's a guaranteed recipe for feeling inadequate.
Constantly measuring up and falling short.
Then there's catastrophizing, leaping to the absolute worst possible outcome in any given situation. The most terrible thing that could happen.
Making mountains out of molehills.
Well, that's close to magnification, which is turning relatively small issues into huge catastrophes. Like an awkward comment at a party becomes a social disaster everyone will remember forever.
Right, blowing things way out of proportion.
And then the classic black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking, seeing only extremes, success or failure, perfect or terrible.
Like having a whole rainbow of clothes, but only ever wearing black or white.
Great analogy. Have you ever labeled an entire day ruined because just one minor thing went wrong?
Yeah, probably yesterday. Many times.
That's black and white thinking. And then there's personalization. Seeing yourself as the central character in every story, even when it's not about you. Like wondering, what did I do wrong if a colleague seems a bit distant?
Assuming it's always about us.
Right. And finally, labeling. Slapping these simplistic, often negative tags on situations or people, including yourself. It's the difference between saying, I made a mistake and I'm a loser.
One is about behavior, the other is about identity.
Exactly. Labels try to capture an entire complex library in just a single, often damaging word. So as you listen, you might reflect. Which of these patterns do you recognize in your own thinking? Just bringing awareness is huge.
That's a really helpful breakdown.
Yeah.
So the big question then is, how do we actually do this? How do we practice non-judgment in our day-to-day lives? It sounds great, but hard.
It is a practice. Like learning any new skill, playing an instrument, learning a language, cultivating non-judgment requires practice. Each time you notice judgment arising and consciously choose differently, you're literally building fresh neural pathways in your brain.
Rewiring, essentially.
Exactly. One really powerful technique is to keep a journal. Write down your thoughts, especially judgmental ones, so you can examine them more objectively.
Get them out of your head.
Right. And when you spot negative patterns, try actively reframing them. For instance, change that presentation was a total disaster to something like, okay, the presentation had some rough moments, but I also made some good points, and I definitely learned from it.
Shifting the narrative, that makes sense. And I imagine meditation would be a key tool here.
Oh, absolutely central. If you think of judgment as this raging river, meditation teaches you how to sit peacefully on the bank,
Observing it flow by.
observing it without being swept away. When your mind inevitably wanders into judgment or anything else, you just gently redirect your attention back to your breath or your chosen focus without criticizing yourself for wandering.
The gentleness is key.
It is. This builds the crucial skill of observing thoughts as thoughts rather than automatically identifying with them and believing them.
Okay. Are there any, like, quick techniques for in the moment?
Yeah, a quick breathing technique can be really helpful. Try placing one hand on your abdomen, one on your heart. Breathe in slowly through your nose, maybe for a count of 8. Hold gently for 4. Then exhale slowly through your mouth for 8.
848.
Right? And as you do this, you can visualize drawing in clarity or peace and breathing out, releasing the judgment. Just a few rounds can make a difference.
That sounds grounding. What about visualization for releasing judgment? Does imagery help?
Our minds respond really powerfully to imagery. So yes, you could picture your judgments as clouds floating by in the sky, just passing.
Letting them drift.
Or maybe imagine them as leaves floating down a stream, carried away by the current. Another one is envisioning judgments entering one door of your mind and immediately exiting through another without stopping or leaving a trace. Find an image that resonates for you.
I like the leaves on a stream idea. And physical tension. Does that relate?
Definitely. Our bodies often hold judgment as physical tension, tight jaw, clenched fists, hunched shoulders. Progressive muscle relaxation can be great.
How does that work?
You systematically tense and then release different muscle groups, maybe starting with your face, then neck, shoulders, arms, all the way down to your toes. As you release the physical tension, you often find it creates mental space too. The mind-body connection is strong.
Connecting physical release to mental release.
Okay.
And when it comes to how we interact with other people, what about letting go of first impressions? We make them so fast.
So fast. Our minds are quick to sort people into categories based on surface stuff appearance, the first thing they say. But people are incredibly complex, infinite varieties.
There's always more to the story.
Always. Profound stories often hide behind unassuming appearances. So consciously try to suspend that initial judgment and remain open. Also, make a real effort to avoid comparisons.
Ugh, the comparison trap again.
It's judgment's favorite playground, isn't it? Whether you conclude you're better or worse than others, both conclusions create separation and often suffering. If you feel the urge to compare, try comparing your current self against your past self.
Focus on personal growth.
Exactly. Are you growing, learning, becoming more compassionate? That's a much healthier benchmark.
That's a great reframe. I've heard about Ho'oponopono before. How does that fit in?
Yes, practice Ho'oponopono. It's a powerful Hawaiian healing practice. It involves silently repeating 4 simple phrases, often directed inwardly or towards a situation or person you feel judgment towards. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you.
Simple but profound phrases.
They really are.
Yeah.
Repeating them can help dissolve the energetic boundaries that judgment creates, fostering reconciliation and peace, often starting within yourself.
Okay. Now, it's also important to remember we still need to function in the world. What about when discernment is necessary? Sometimes we do have to make choices.
Absolutely a critical point. Non-judgment doesn't mean non-discernment. Life requires choosing paths, making decisions, sometimes evaluating situations for safety or effectiveness.
So how do we do that wisely?
When discernment is needed, the key is the quality of mind you bring to it. Seek wisdom before speaking or acting. Cultivate awareness of your own biases. Resist jumping to hasty opinions. Approach with humility, recognizing you might not have the full picture. Always try to hold the highest good for everyone involved. And if harm has occurred, focus on paths toward making amends rather than just assigning blame.
So it's not about becoming passive, but about being intentionally wise and compassionate in our necessary evaluations.
Exactly. Discernment from a place of clarity and care, not reactive judgment.
Got it. So how do we weave all this into the fabric of our daily lives, making it stick?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily require dramatic lifestyle changes. It's more about heightened awareness and making consistent small choices throughout your day.
Little shifts.
Little shifts add up. You could start with the morning invitation. Before your feet even touch the floor, maybe take 3 conscious breaths and silently recite an intention. Something like, today I open myself to seeing beyond my initial judgments. I choose to meet each person and situation with fresh eyes, free from the burden of unnecessary evaluation.
Setting a tone.
Exactly. It sets a powerful, conscious tone for the day ahead.
I can definitely see how that could frame the day differently. And you mentioned the judgment pause.
Yes. This is super practical. Whenever you catch yourself in the act of making a judgment about yourself, someone else, a situation, just pause. Implement a 3-second pause.
Just 3 seconds.
Just 3 seconds. During that brief interval, ask yourself silently, is this judgment truly necessary for my safety or well-being? Is it based on complete information, or am I making assumptions? How would I feel if someone judged me this way based on this?
Quick reality check.
Often, just that momentary interruption creates enough space to choose a more considered, less reactive response. It breaks the automaticity.
That's a powerful practical step. And what about the language shift? Our words really do reflect and shape our mental patterns, don't they?
They absolutely do. So practice consciously substituting neutral, descriptive language for those loaded, judgmental terms. Instead of saying, that was a stupid decision, maybe try. That decision had consequences I wouldn't prefer, or led to unexpected outcomes.
More objective.
Yeah. Instead of, she's so selfish, perhaps try. Her choices seem to prioritize different values than mine right now. It isn't about sugarcoating reality. It's about describing it accurately without adding that extra layer of judgment that creates suffering for you and potentially others.
Removing the sting.
Mm-hmm.
And when judgment does arise, try the curiosity practice.
Yes, this is a great one. Try to transform the energy of judgment into curiosity. If your mind spits out what's wrong with that person, can you consciously shift it to wondering, what might be happening in their life right now that I don't see? Or I wonder what led them to this point?
Opens things up.
Exactly. Curiosity opens doors, judgment slams them shut.
That feels like a very compassionate approach. Speaking of which, the compassion loop. What's that?
This is about creating a mental habit.
Mm-hmm.
Follow every judgment you notice yourself making with a wave of compassion. First, extend compassion towards the object of your judgment, the person, the situation, even yourself if it's self-judgment. Then, crucially, extend compassion to yourself for having judged in the first place.
Compassion for judging.
Yes. We're human, we're conditioned. Beating yourself up for judging just adds another layer of judgment. This dual-direction compassion helps heal the separation that judgment creates.
Acknowledging our shared humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And finally, the evening review.
Yeah, end your day with just a brief, gentle reflection. Think about moments when you did successfully practice non-judgment. Maybe you caught yourself, paused, chose curiosity. Acknowledge that. Also notice times when judgment maybe took over.
Without judging the review itself.
Exactly. Approach this review without judging yourself for the lapses. Instead, just celebrate your growing awareness. Awareness is the key. Then recommit gently to your practice for tomorrow.
This journey we've taken, wow. From understanding the mind's really deeply ingrained judgmental nature, through recognizing those cognitive distortions that fuel it, and now landing on these practical steps for actually cultivating non-judgment, it feels clear this path leads towards a state of profound presence.
Mm-hmm. Where we meet each moment with an awareness that's both clear-eyed and open-hearted.
And it allows us to respond from wholeness, right,
Yeah.
instead of fragmentation, from wisdom instead of just knee-jerk fear, from presence instead of projection.
Beautifully said. We learn to navigate life's complexities maybe with the light touch of someone dancing rather than the heavy tread of someone marching through.
I love that analogy, dancing versus marching.
And non-judgment, it isn't about achieving some kind of bland, neutral, passive state. It's really about reclaiming the freedom that actually exists prior to our conditioned responses.
It's about remembering how to see with the eyes of wonder, maybe, rather than the eyes of constant assessment and grading.
Exactly. Discovering that the world becomes infinitely richer, more nuanced, more beautiful when we stop trying to reduce everything and everyone to simplistic labels and categories.
It's a profound shift in perspective.
It truly is. So maybe the final thought for you listening is this. As you go about your day today or tomorrow, what judgment might you notice arising? And could you just maybe gently release it, inviting a little bit of this profound inner transformation?